Well, good morning and welcome to Coffee with the Pastor. We're going through the Sermon on the Mount, and yesterday we've kind of finished up a section that began on murder. It says, You have heard that it says, you shall not murder. And Jesus talks about, if you're going to have righteousness better than the Pharisees, which he had already, that was his standard, he said, you're going to have to deal with the inner workings. He said, you're going to have to deal with anger. You're going to have to deal with your disrespect of folks and looking at others as worthless by not calling them raka or fool. Yesterday, we looked at where Jesus said, if you're at the altar and you remember somebody has something against you, you go and make it right. And we talked about the idea of forgiveness and being forgiven, receiving forgiveness and forgiving others. Today, we're going to take it a step further, and I want to read the next two verses. It's verse 25 and 26 of Matthew chapter 5. Jesus says, settle matters quickly with your adversary who's taking you to court. Do it while you are still together on the way, or your adversary may hand you over to the judge, and the judge may hand you over to the officer, and you may be thrown into prison. Truly, I tell you, you will not get out until you have paid the last penny. Today, Jesus is going to talk about being reconciled. And this is a message we desperately need in our society today. And understand that the law for Jesus was boiled down to two commands. They both come from the Torah, or from the law, the first 5 books of the Bible. One of them comes from Deuteronomy, and one comes from Leviticus, where he says, love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, all thy soul, and all thy mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. And he says, if you're going to live like that, you've got to forgive people, but you not only need to forgive people, you need to be reconciled to people. Being reconciled is important. I believe that the church is going to be the key to whether America culture makes it or not. And we're going to have to get very good at reconciliation. We live in a very divided country right now. People really are very divided. They won't listen to each other. There's no middle ground. There's nothing. And that's not the teaching of Jesus. And we in the church are going to have to show the way on this. We're going to have to learn reconciliation. And he says, if somebody has something against you, and he's talking to his followers, and he said, if that person's taking you to court, he says, work it out of court. He says, work it out on the way to court. He says, work it out. He says, because if you don't, and I think he's using a little humor here. I think we don't get it in the English translation, but I think he's just looking at them and saying, man, if you don't, you might get a bad judge. And this judge might not give you justice, and he might actually go for this guy, and he flat out might throw you in jail until you pay back all that you owe. So work it out before you get there. Be reconciled with this person. Work it through. I think the best illustration I've seen of reconciliation is in South Africa after apartheid. Nelson Mandela appointed Desmond Tutu into what he called a reconciliation position. And they had those truth and reconciliation councils and meetings all over South Africa. Because there had been atrocities happen. The white police and the white folks had done atrocities to the Africans and to the blacks there. They had done things to each other. There had been so much senseless killing and all. And they were able to bring people together and say, just tell us the truth. And the person that you wronged will forgive you and we'll be reconciled back together because we need to live together. It's one of the most powerful things I've ever heard of. Desmond Tutu wrote a book on it, powerful book, One of the most powerful things I saw in the book, that I read in the book, was there was a little girl whose family had been ambushed by the police, and the rest of her family had been killed. She was the only one left. And they asked her if she could forgive those. She says, I could forgive them if I knew who they were. And so people were encouraged to come out and confess their atrocities. And if they would come out and confess their atrocities in front of those that they had hurt, in front of their victims, and the victims forgave them, they would be reconciled back into society. And it was amazing how much of that went on and how it went on. And that's how Jesus has taught us to live. And I'm thinking we may be heading to a place here in the United States where we may have to have some truth and reconciliation things as well. But this is what Jesus taught us to do. He says, somebody's got something against you, they're taking you to court, work it out with them. Talk with them. Work it through. If you've wronged them, then you apologize. If you need to be wronged some, it doesn't matter. Reconciliation is the biggest matter. It's a great way to live. It's a hard way to live. But I am encouraging you today to be reconciled with all the people around you. Even the word shalom has that meaning to it. Shalom means to be right with God, and it means to be right with others. And so if you're going to have the peace of God in your life, you're going to have to be reconciled with those that you have differences with. And that's the teaching of Jesus from the Sermon on the Mount. It's pretty radical, but we've been called to live radical lives. Well, I hope you have a great weekend. And all the church members, I hope to see you Sunday. We're in our new facility. It's wonderful. And then for the rest of you, I'll see you next Monday. Have a good day.